Hi everyone and welcome back. This is the Academic Senate President's Report for September 2019. I'll be covering two Board of Trustees meetings for September 10th and the one tonight, September 24th. And then also, as usual, a few odds and ends because September has been such a busy month here at LTCC. So we'll start the meeting of September 10th. And we had an introduction of two new employees. It's always exciting to see our new employee introductions. We know that if we've served on some of those hiring committees, our efforts come to fruition when we hire someone new. So we have Felix Chagoya, our Interim Director of Maintenance and Operations. I'm sure you've seen Felix all around campus. Many of us have said, he came on board when we had so many big things happening: graduation, ISSE, Coyote Kickoff, Convocation. So just a lot has been going on campus that's really affected our Maintenance and Operations Department. So please say hi to Felix. Also, Brian Gouge is our new evening lead groundskeeper custodian. So if you're a faculty member and you teach at night and you see Brian walking around, please say hello to him. If you have any issues or questions or concerns, reach out to him, and he's a very friendly face, and we welcome Brian to our campus as well. So the LTCC president, Jeff DeFranco, gives his report, and it's often in these board meetings where a lot of the I don't want to say the good stuff, but the stuff that really has a connection to some of our big activities that we're doing, like we'll talk about Coyote Kickoff and Convocation and Promise and the Chancellor's office visit and State of the College. This is usually where it appears in the board agenda. So if you're looking for that on the agenda on the PDFs, just look for that section. So from this meeting, just some of the highlights. One was our very successful Coyote Training Day, and I'll show you some images here. It was just so exciting to see so many of our fellow staff and faculty administrators on campus. We've had a bunch of big trainings that Connect has put on for us that get us off campus and really get us to connect with our fellow people that we work with off-site, often doing activities, boating, some really great catering, lunches and breakfasts. So it was just really exciting to take part in our Coyote Training Day, which happens every year, typically in early September. So be on the lookout for that next year. We also had a very successful Promise Day. Show you some images from that. And actually, I'll show you, I have a little short video here. It's gonna be probably the best way just to incorporate that information here in this video. So I'll cut to that now. And as you can see in that video, Clinton and many others were involved. Julie Booth, our new Promise Director, our President, our dean. And so it was just really exciting to see so many people engaging with our new Promise students. We did have that attempt to do the beach activity, but the water prevented us from getting out in the kayaks and paddle boards, but that sometimes happens when it starts to turn, the weather becomes inclement in September and October. So great Promise Day, and congrats to all involved in organizing it. Like the Coyote Kickoff with every year, I'm sure it'll be bigger and better next year when we do it. The board also at that meeting, so that was the end of President DeFranco's items from his report. The board adopted its 2019-2020 budget. I'm not going to go into the weeds here, but we have a really committed board and a diligent board, particularly when it comes to budget. You see so many members of the board member David, who get very deep right into line items and asking questions about things that are a deficit and so forth. So if you want more of that detail, it was a very long discussion, I think close to 40 minutes. Be sure to check out the podcast and you can listen to more in-depth conversation from our board. But the nuts and bolts of it, the gist of it is we adopted the 1920 budget. And of course, more is coming with revisions, but the budget was adopted. Also, we had our adoption of the 2019 to 2022 equity plan. Laura Salinas came in and presented. I had a chance to sit down with Laura and Jonathan, and we actually reviewed the equity plan, so I've had some involvement in it. And I'm just really excited to see some of the activities on the horizon that we're talking about connected to equity, speaker series, and so forth. So be sure to check out the board agenda, read the PDF to get the entirety of the equity plan. And if you see Laura, thank her for her hard work, because it's so much effort putting this together and thinking about all the nuance and dynamics that has to happen in any college's equity plan. So be sure to check that out for more information. So the next item, and actually in this President's Report, you're going to hear two items that relate to Superintendent, President, and Board of Trustees goals. So every year the board and president collaborate and choose some goals that would be really good for our campus. So we'll talk in this video today about the 18-19 goals and progress towards that. And there was actually recently a progress update. So this has all the information. I really like this format, by the way. So 1 year you get the goals, pretty detailed. I like how they do it all in color and nice layout. And the next year you get a longer version, and that's like the update. What did we do on campus to meet some of those goals? What's our progress on them? So the first issue is then actually the goals coming up, and that's the 1920 Superintendent, President, Board goals. And I'm actually going to wait until I get the official document because I want to share that with you. But just to keep in mind what's happening, a lot of what we've been working on in the past will be continuation of that. One that I find particularly exciting connected to the CBCOI grant is the goal of focusing on the quality of DE instruction. So a lot more is going to be coming with that one because so many of us on campus are either teaching DE or involved, as Treva and I and some of the others out there, Clinton, Mark Davis, in the CBCOI grant. So be on the lookout for the official version of this, and I will wait for that and then share it with you, probably at our next video President's Report that I give to you. So the progress on the 18-19 goals, so again, you get these every year. You got this very lengthy update. I will save the detail. You can look through the report, and if I have any problems finding that in the board report, let me know. But it goes through each of the goals. So how did we do? Guided pathways, and what's cool about this is you see images. So like we have the meta majors here now because one of the goals was to implement in fall 2019, and we certainly did that. We have t-shirts now. We have, I think, pretty good progress with our meta majors and guided pathways. The implementation goal 2 of the SEM project, Strategic Enrollment Management Tahoe Clear. A number of us were involved in that. I have a very long video on the SEM project, so you can certainly check that out. Launching and expanding a basin-wide Lake Tahoe College Promise. There's a picture here of our Promise Student Day. I will have later in this video a bit of a conversation about what's happening with Promise since I'm so closely connected to it in terms of teaching the class. Goal 4, facilitating a new multi-year strategic plan. Goal 5, expanding advocacy and development efforts to achieve LTCC goals. This is a lot of the LEDGE efforts that Rusty and President DeFranco are involved in, so you could kind of read the report. 5, expanding advocacy and development efforts to achieve goals. So certainly the foundation, grants, a lot of stuff comes into this. Goal 6, lead student and workforce housing development and services. We're excited to have the 3681 Aspen Avenue property. The numbers of students occupying, being residents there have continued to grow. So that is just really exciting to see. And then 7, continuous improvement, deepen and strengthen LTCC initiatives. And it talks about some of the efforts, including our new classroom spaces and expanding other programs on campus, including our CTE programs. So really good news, I think. If you want to read the detail, please check out the progress update available here on the website. We'll shift now to the board meeting of September 24th, 2019. As I always say, if you have questions that aren't answered by these brief video updates, just let me know, and I would be very happy to sit down with you in my office and B101A, talk about the board agenda. Also, you can go to the board agenda, look at the PDF, very easy to do, as I always say. Go to the board docs area, and then this is the agenda for September 24th. I'll refer to some of this, and it has every item in great detail. You can click on the PDF and see exactly what's being considered. So I'm just giving you the overview of things, whereas at the board meeting, they delve into what's contained in those very detailed packets. The other thing you can do, of course, which I recommend, is to listen to the podcasts. All the board meetings are audio recorded. You can listen to those and get all the detail of what gets discussed. If you don't attend the meetings, you don't really get that nuance of what's happening. And I will say our board president and senior management team, they're very much involved in these in-depth conversations about issues. So I've just been impressed with seeing the level of detail and discussion that happens in any given board meeting. So really good to get that sense of that from the podcast. So first update is on the state of the college. As you might have witnessed, there was just a lot of good information presented by the president. I'm sharing some of the images here. The entire State of the College address is available on the LTCC website. If you didn't have a chance to attend in person, I think every seat in the House was taken. There was media representation. There were folks from the community, dignitaries. Of course, our Chancellor was in attendance and some folks from the Chancellor's office in Sacramento. And a lot of the State of the College focused on these goal updates. So I'm not going to go over those again, but really that was very pertinent information for the campus community to hear. There was even linking back to graduation with our graduation speaker. So a little bit of continuity there. And then as usual, there was a group of students who came up, including one of our really good incarcerated students who is now no longer in incarceration and is doing some great work. So it was really cool to see our students represented on stage as well. So you can always go back and look at the State of the College, watch the video. I do recommend it. We also had a really involved convocation every year. It seems to be bigger and better. We had the training day, which I'll show you images of. It was just fun to do some training. We had a scavenger hunt. We had the boat stuff, which was really fun. A lot of people got onto the boat, maybe for the first time this year, including myself. And we just had a beautiful day, I thought, for that. There was really good food as usual. The Connect office put this together, and it was just really exciting to see faculty engaged off campus in a lot of just fun activities and recreational time and so forth. We also had a visit by Chancellor Eloy Oakley. So he was here for a staff appreciation lunch. By the way, it was great to see HR put that on. Kind of had the superhero theme, which really modeled what has been happening through student life, and Julie Booth and all the efforts there. He also attended State of the College, and then he had a one-on-one meeting with our faculty. And I have to say our faculty asked some very good questions. I don't think we pulled any punches, and it was really good just to see our voice represented. We met just right here across from my office in B103, and it was really well attended. So thank you to all the faculty who came to that, because I think it's really important for a small campus, a small college, a single college district to represent to Sacramento and our representatives down there. In addition to Chancellor, we had a member of our Board of Governors and 2 other staff persons from the Chancellor's office. We have to represent the uniqueness of being a small college, and I think we did that really well. So thank you to all of you who came out for that. As I mentioned, we had a great training day at Valhalla. You see a few more images from that. And as I said, it's cool just to see us get off campus and to really literally get our feet wet, going on a boat, doing some stuff on the beach, and then also doing some activities that take us out of our norm, our typical, meeting day activities that we might do on campus. So always cool to have this happen during Convocation. I think every year gets better, and thank you to all the people involved. Sarah organized this, Allie, Brad, and also Michelle Risden. So thank you to all of them for organizing, and of course our Connect office, Megan and others, Allie and Darcy, for putting on a lot of the activities. Really good events by everyone there in terms of Convocation week. Coyote Kickoff. So I thought Coyote Kickoff was even better than last year. I'll show you some images, by the way, on my YouTube channel. We've got ample videos on the meta majors taking you around. So if you didn't get a chance to attend, if you missed some of that, check out my videos on Coyote Kickoff, because I just thought what was put on, and Julie Booth gets a lot of credit for this, and many others, Larry Thorne in instruction, for organizing everything. It just takes so much work to do the physical layout, to work with maintenance and operations, to think about Wi-Fi with our IT department. We just kind of show up if we're faculty and we have our props, and it was really fun doing that. But there's so much, like everything else. I say I'm a big behind the scenes person, because we see just the final version, and the community and the students see it, but all the person power and planning and effort that went into Coyote Kickoff, we just really need to acknowledge all the people on campus who don't get thanked enough, I think, who put this all together and made it so successful. So kudos to all of you, because it was such an amazing event. The food was outstanding. There was a DJ, the t-shirts, there was like a photo booth. I was just so impressed with the level, everyone upping their game this year, from student services to the clubs to the food offerings and all the faculty. Having the meta major arrangement, to me, really worked, because we were able to do more demos that really connected to our areas. And so I thought it was just wonderful. So check out some of the videos on Coyote Kickoff if you want to see more about that. So at tonight's board meeting, Scott Valentine is giving his PDL report. And one of the things I really advise you to do on this is to read the entire report. So you see it here. These were the PDL objectives. And these are often very detailed and involved. You're not just doing one thing. So you can see this is a good example of it. So here are his objectives: take a multi-day wilderness medical course, visit remote field sites, do geology field course development, assist in program development and curriculum integration with university center partners. And this just takes you through the pictures, some of the site visits. That looks pretty nice. Field course development, it looks like some examples of what's happening. Interdisciplinary studies, some of the outcomes of the project, and then it looks like some of the efforts with University of California Agriculture and Natural Resources Partnership Programs. And this is like really detailed, and I think you really see this, that when faculty do their professional development leaves, they're really involved. They're really in depth. They involve travel, they involve classes, they involve field trips, involve forms of collaboration, reading resources. As you can see, it looks like a lot of just fun stuff here with some of the actual outdoor components of this. So that is the objective side, and then here's the actual report. So there's a presentation, and then there's a report. You can read the report in its entirety. You can see it looks like he completed all his training, CPR training, CR rescue training. That's cool. And it has all the outcomes. So this is typically the detail of what was proposed and the degree to which, and typically it's always met, the objectives are met, but it has all the outcomes here. And you can see it's really lengthy, right? So this is serious stuff, a PDL. It's not just faculty members traveling around. It's like, look at this, taking all these certifications, curriculum planning, and it has some conversations here about things that worked out and things that didn't work out. It has here in parts 4 and 5, so you can take a look at that. But just really amazing to see the depth of this. And you can also read the conclusion. It's worth looking at. But as you can see here, it says the PDL program at LTCC provided an opportunity to improve upon my teaching practice and conduct work that would benefit future LTCC students and the organization. I recertified several professional certificates. I was able to visit several field sites, collected samples, photos, logistical information valuable when offering future field courses. So it's cool like this. And congratulations, by the way, I believe Scott Valentine completed his PhD, so he's now Dr. Valentine. But what's cool about this is you do the PDL and then it helps something at the college. It could be something with your department. In this case, it could be something related to wilderness offerings, to geology offerings, GIS program, and so forth. So just really want to emphasize that, because I think if you don't read the reports, if you don't talk to the faculty involved, if you don't see the presentations at the board meeting, you get a sense that, well, it's just time off. It's actually really structured time off. It's not just a vacation. It's all about taking what you learn in your PDL program and bringing that back to the college, however that benefits the organization, the department, students, etc. So kudos to Scott Valentine for presenting at the board meeting tonight. Always exciting to hear the PDL presentations. The next area of update is a residential housing update. So you're aware that we have the new property on Aspen Avenue. I've heard all great things about that. The numbers of students growing over time here, so really exciting. I also have a student or two in my Promise classes, and they're loving it. They've said some really great things about the facility. So the board is using a consulting firm, and the consulting firm, basically the short of it is, we'll be thinking about future possibilities for on-campus housing. So that's all I'm going to say now, because we're just in the initial stages of looking at this item, but more is certainly to come. Okay, so I have to say that actually I had originally decided not to go into depth about the residential living options that are being discussed, but after the board meeting, which was, this particular item was about maybe 45 minutes of conversation, so I thought it was just so engaging that I wanted to just throw it out there, because it really was the best presentation I've seen to date of what potential future on-campus student housing might look like. So again, as usual, go to the September 24th board meeting, look for this agenda item. It's under reports 4.3. This firm, the Concourse Group, was brought in. I believe they're based out of Colorado. I was actually really impressed with the two individuals who presented. They just knew a lot about options for residential housing. They do it all over the country and throughout California. And so it seemed to me that they were really honing in on what would work for us, and they were very honest about some options that wouldn't work. So these are some of the milestones here. It sounds to me like very soon the board will be making a decision whether to go forward with one of these projects. The third project, I think, is the one that everyone is looking at as the most fiscally possible. Once that happens, then you do what's called an industry forum, and you get your RFPs, where you see what exactly people would be willing to do, what kind of stipulations would they have in terms of housing units, in terms of mixed retail housing, workforce housing, and so forth. So you see the timeline here. Occupancy wouldn't happen until 2024. So really long process, and thus I think it's important for the board. They've said they want to make a decision shortly because they've hired this consulting firm, and now the decision has to be made up or down whether or not to go forward. So there were two attachments I encourage you to look at. Very detailed. They get a lot into just the different possibilities. There was a study done in 2016. I think a lot of these studies, you figure out that if you want to do on-campus housing, it's going to be very expensive. There are a lot of regulations to deal with. Some of the costs that we don't think about if we're not in construction, like even setting up your utility, running your lines and all that, and any kind of setup costs from public agencies, either you have to pay up for that, or maybe you negotiate a better rate or something like that. So any kind of housing project obviously involves so many moving pieces and agencies and options. And so that's why I think a firm like this can really look at all those different points of connection and see what might actually work. The regulation with the TRPA and other groups, of course, has an impact potentially on what we might do. And also keep in mind that if you do any construction in Tahoe, as so many of you know, if you have homes up at the lake, there are all sorts of change orders and things that happen along the way. I think they say between 5 and 6% overage they always estimate per year. So even if you budget a certain amount, if you get some funders and then you start the construction, think about how much that project can go up and how much then the district has to pay for that. So it's really a tricky matter going from this stage of the board approving it, going for RFPs, potentially finding some partners out there, having community fora, and then actually going into construction, doing all those phases. It's really challenging. I remember sitting on the board as Senate President back when we were building the physical ed complex, And little things like leaving out certain things in the architect plans led to change orders that cost, $10, $20, $30,000. That certainly could happen. So I think it's not something we want to do if we're not committed to it in the long haul, and if we really do have to think about the finances of it. So the firm decided that 3 sites were possible options. I think site 3 is probably not going to happen. That was one initially where we said if we had a dorm, the dorm would be here, the library would be here, food services would be here, a cafeteria. And I have to say, personally, going through some of what happened back in the day with our food services, where we were losing, quite a bit of money per year in the red, just because of the cost of running a food service operation. I personally, this is just me, I get nervous about any of those ideas because I know that running a restaurant, having food service, you maybe never want to turn a profit, you want to break even, but if you're in the red like we were for so many years, it becomes really a concern, because being in the red on food services means maybe not doing a faculty line or some other opportunity on campus that you really need. They also talked about option 1, and then I think the one they're leaning at probably is this option 2 on El Tahoe Boulevard. That will allow for this interesting retail workforce housing, student housing combination, the P3 model here. P3, of course, is a public-private partnership, pretty common in education, in transportation, in other arenas where you want some flexibility and options for funding and for serving different communities, as we would be doing with workforce housing. So option 1, scenario 1, the standalone student housing, they really said this was probably a no-go, and I won't get into the depths of why that's the case. Scenario 2, also, they were recommending not really going forward with this. It'd be student and workforce housing. Same option as scenario 1, a little bit of differences here in terms of the layouts. And you can see some models here. If you go to Kings Beach, I think one really nice workforce housing project is up there just as you're turning the corner on the right-hand side there if you're driving up the North Shore. So these can be really attractive for sure when you look at some of the options. So scenario 3 is really the one that they're talking about. There wouldn't be standalone student housing. There would be 120 units of workforce housing and 5,000 square feet of retail space. And there would be a master lease plan. And this is the one I'm mentioning, the really nice workforce housing in Kings Beach. I personally think that this is a good option because we do need to be key players in this dialogue about affordability, like what the Prosperity Center is talking about, in terms of the crazy skyrocketing of rents and the cost of homes in the South Shore. It's happening in Reno now. I just saw a report in the news about a big town hall meeting about the increased costs of real estate and rent in Reno. It's nice to have, Tesla and all these businesses moving in, and it's really good for culture and for food and lifestyle. But the increased cost of rent is always, I think, a challenge to think about. We're getting a Whole Foods now. It's opening in November. It's great to have a Whole Foods, but when you have a Whole Foods, that is a particular store that connects with a more middle class to upper middle class clientele. As a result of that, we never think that Whole Foods could result in the cost of rents going up in Tahoe, but it certainly can. And so we have to think big picture in terms of not just our student housing, but really helping our local community. So what could happen in the student housing here is then you would lease a certain, this is scenario 3, I think we're really leaning towards. You would have workforce housing. You would lease 25 two-bedroom units. Now, the cost that they're getting at here, $2,200 per unit, that still seems pretty expensive. So maybe what would happen is divide that by 4 and, $700-800 per student if you had double beds or 2 beds in each of the 1-bedroom units, and then you would have a shared kitchen space. This is really good. It goes through the pros and the cons of the student housing experience. So clearly, this is not going to be a student housing experience. There would not be any food services. It still would be on campus, but it's not going to sort of connect in as these other options would in terms of an actual dorm. I just don't think we're ever going to be there financially, as this says, to have standalone dorms on campus. So summary and recommendations, scenario 3 appears to be the most viable for providing housing on the campus. The recommendations consider presenting this to industry to see if there is interest and then see what possible proposals would come forward. The board was really cognizant of not making maybe the requirements, like the number of units. There was a discussion about luxury units, and I think the board was very clear they didn't want this to be housing for the very wealthy and to have a bunch of second home owners having these luxury units, say, in the housing complex. And the emphasis should be on students and also our lower income population to give them affordable housing. So that was the summary there from the group. And then the second document is more information, more depth, talks about the sites, and really gives you much more, and really just more information about the needs in the community. One thing that came up with the board that's interesting is that if there are other partnerships out there on the horizon, and the concourse firm said they were not currently working for any other possible groups looking to bring a P3 project, but if there are other workforce housing projects out there, we're potentially in competition with them. So I have the feeling that the board will make a decision fairly soon. There's only one board meeting in November and one in December, so my guess is something will happen at maybe the November board meeting in terms of a decision about this. So if you have any concerns or comments, you can always reach out to your contacts. You can talk to me, you can talk to others on campus. If you see a board member, you can certainly express your concerns. My personal view on this is I think if it's fiscally responsible for a district, I personally support on option 3, particularly because it does have a workforce housing component. And just based on my background in spatial design and some industry connections with entertainment and theme parks, I feel like the mixed retail / housing option has been really successful in the Bay Area and a lot of communities. It can bring a lot of vibrancy to your community. It can really bring that sense of community because you're bringing people together, different services, different retail options there, maybe food or whatever. So I think it should be an interesting couple of months here as we wait for a decision from the board, but I did want to present this to you now because it's such a current issue, and the discussion in the board meeting I thought was particularly engaging. If you want more information on this, please go to the board item, and that is item 4.3 under reports. And as you can see here, the group is called the Concourse Group, and there is really extensive documentation here. Again, look at all these possibilities here, and this group prepared all of the ideas that could work, and as you can see, very lengthy 16-page report. The Director of Student Life position is being advertised. Just want to mention this. So this is a position that Julie Booth is vacating as she's the new Promise Director. So I offer this out there. If you know of anyone internally or externally who'd be really good in this position, let them know about it. Get the information from HR, and certainly think about this because we want someone great in that position. It's just so important to have student life at, I would say, the top of our college in terms of wraparound services, because as we roll out with more of Promise and Guide Pathways, we need activities like Coyote Kickoff to make a meaningful connection with our students and our community. So excited to see this position being advertised. We'll cover some additional odds and ends as well. I was really happy to see Dr. J.D. Dirk from Political Science and History hold, during our first week of classes, Constitution Day. I saw him out there for, it seemed like 3 or 4 hours. I was out there, I did a little interview, and you can actually check out, maybe I'll just include that here. Well, let's splice to that so you can get a sense of what that was all about. It's a pretty short video. Hi everyone, and welcome back. I'm really happy to be out here today at LTCC here in September, in our Commons, celebrating Constitution Day. So if you are interested in Constitution Day, I would really advise you every September to come out, check it out. It's something we're required to do, and we're really excited to do it. So right now I'm going to talk to Dr. J.D. Dirk, who has organized this and put a lot of effort into it. So he's going to give us an overview of why it's so important.
Constitution Day is important because it's a national day of observance for our founding document. And when I think about the Constitution, it's 2 major components. There's the Articles, which essentially establishes our system of government, and then there's the amendments, which are our rights and freedoms. And the reason why this is really important is, I mean, it's part of our bedrock identity in a democratic republic like the United States of America, but it's bigger than that. It's also what you choose to do with the rights that you have. So to me, the document's important, but it's also how you act upon your rights and freedoms to make the world better reflect your values, essentially. So it's up to you to make those types of choices and to go out into the world and make it a place that reflects what it is that you believe in and what you care about. And I like to tell my students that nobody has time for every issue, but everybody has time for one issue. And so it's important for us, I think, as young adults, for people to find what cause matters to them and then find an organization that works on that issue and go out and try to affect public policy and find ways to, like I said, make the world better reflect your values, because that's part of what I think this system of government is all about. Thank you.
So as he said in that video, it's really important to think about civic engagement in terms of our student body. So kudos to him for putting this together. Also to marketing, I know they supported the purchasing of the tablecloth, and instruction office for just facilitating some of those budgetary items in terms of having the constitutions and other literature available. So kudos to all involved. Very exciting. By the way, if you do an event on campus and I miss it, I'm here most days, but if I miss your event, please send me some, grab your phone, send me some videos, send me some stills. I'll put it in the report. I'll be very happy to publicize it for you. Also, if you're doing something on campus and you want some footage shot, I've been known to, carry a tripod or two around campus and bring a camera to or a lavalier microphone. I would love to shoot it for you. I'll put it up on YouTube, I'll host it, I'll edit it for you, and you can publicize your program, your department, your student activity. So just let me know, and I'd love to help you out on some video efforts. So Promise, a lot is happening with Promise. I'm just so excited to say that we have so many students in the Promise program. I've been working with Julie and other folks down in the Promise office, and you probably see there's construction going on, working on the new Promise office just near our navigators. But it's so exciting to teach. I'm teaching 3 sections of the Promise class. I have videos, by the way, on my YouTube channel of all my Promise classes for my students. You're also welcome to watch the videos. I have the syllabus available if you want to check it out. I'd love to sit down with you in B101A and talk to you about what the Promise program is. Julie would do the same, I'm sure. Christy, who's our Promise counselor. This Promise class is really unique because we're bringing in guests from all over campus, and they're talking to students about everything from student life to academic success to financial literacy to how to apply for your financial aid to how to plan for your winter quarter classes. Really exciting opportunity for me to teach this class. Over 90 students enrolled. I ran out of syllabi. I actually think I'm over 100 syllabi, so I think it could be closer to 100. And then every single student who goes through Promise has to fulfill a very lengthy contract. And that contract has stipulations, and in return, you get all these credits, you get free tuition, you get $100 a quarter bookstore credit. I want to say a lot about this because I have some other videos on my YouTube channel about the Promise program. But there's a lot of tracking that goes on, and I just want you to be aware, if you have a connection to Promise down the road, maybe through your classes or through counseling, it is super intense. I was looking at, in the Promise office, what Julie has set up. It's like this huge spreadsheet for every single student. So I'm tracking in my class the attendance. They're tracking every single requirement of the contract that is fulfilled or not. Again, if you don't fulfill it, you're booted from the program, unfortunately. But it is, I don't want to say a nightmare, but initially I think it's somewhat of a tracking nightmare because it's so new. We're trying to figure out how to do the bookstore credit. I've heard really good things here in September 2019 that things are rolling with that. But we're going to have some hurdles initially. There's going to be a stumble here and a stumble there just because it's so new. But just be aware that so many people are working behind the scenes to make Promise a successful thing for all of us and for our students, of course. I also want to thank Jonathan, Allie, Brad, Michelle, President DeFranco, Christy, Julie, for coming to those first classes. They volunteered their time, and they offered a really warm welcome to our students. I'll show you some of the images here. It's just really cool to see our administration there, really supporting the Promise program and the Promise students, and I know our Promise students did appreciate it. So kudos to everyone involved. We're doing more. Things are happening. The Promise class is being rolled out. We're learning through the process of doing the program and doing the class, but it's so exciting just to report to you a successful Promise program, and I think we're going to continue with that success into the end of this year and then next year with our new class of Promise students. CBCOI. One of the goals for the Board of Trustees and Presidents for 2019-2020 is to improve the quality of DE instruction. So we had our first CBCOI advisory committee meeting. I'll show you some of those images. Prior to that, we've been meeting one-on-one. Treva and I are involved. Part of her salary is part of the grant. Katie Myers is our new director of the grant. Brad Deeds is heavily involved. Michelle Risden has been coming to meetings. We have a whole team of consultants from Oregon. I mean, it really is a very big cast. So we had our first advisory committee meeting. We had Clinton Culp there. We had Lindsay Bertolman, who's a rock star DE instructor for us part-time. He also teaches full-time for another district. And we just had a really good first collaborative meeting going over the goals of the grant, going over some of the initiatives and efforts that we're going to be doing coming up. A lot to report on this. I won't say too much. I'll probably have some more reports in the future, but Trev and I will be collaborating on some onboarding initiatives with our Canvas site, also with some videos I'll be doing, such that we can roll out a few of these programs. Are still working out which ones. Likely it's going to be hospitality, culinary, wilderness, criminal justice, and we're talking about a few others out there, and sort of keep that list. That list is fluid, I would say, as we're going to be creating onboarding materials and focusing on DE quality, and hopefully getting more of our CTE courses in an online format, maybe fully DE or hybrid format, because there is a need out there in the state. This is a $500,000 grant that we have to do this, so really important we do everything we need to do in the next 10 months because it's only a one-year grant. So more coming on this, but I just am excited to report to you that we are rolling this out. We had our first advisory committee meeting here in September of 2019. And as I said, with that faculty onboarding, you're going to see a lot more initiatives and efforts. I've been working very quickly as much as I can. As you might guess, I'm pulled in a lot of directions, but I'm really trying to get the onboarding up and running, at least in a basic format, as quickly as I can. My goal is to have this done by winter. I would love to have more of it done, though, by the end of the fall quarter. It's a lot of video shooting. I would say estimate about 100 videos I'm doing. It's maybe 200 unique pages in Canvas, which involves writing mostly original text for all those pages, incorporating images, video links, other links. So it's a pretty massive project doing this from the ground up, and I've completely redesigned the onboarding. So just ask you to be patient with me as I try to adjust to this new role and juggle a lot of different responsibilities I have on campus with the training role, with teaching the Promise class, working on CBCOI, doing workshops for all of you, doing trainings, and a lot of other areas as well. If you have any questions about my new position, stop by my office. I'd be happy to chat with you about it, but you're going to see much more happening with faculty onboarding in the near future. Committees, you might be wondering with committees, I have a list here, and my joke every year is that in the old days, it was this. It was literally in the back of a napkin. Maybe not, but I think it was one sheet of paper. You know, jot down a few names. And now, and I think it's a good thing, but now it is more like this, multiple sheets. So what I do every year is I take the list of committees and any people that are rollovers. So if you're year 2 of 3, and that's typically on our council's curriculum committee, then we can just pencil those people in unless something strange happens. You know, if someone takes another job, obviously we're going to replace that person. But then every other position, I try to make a mark and figure out, well, do we need someone on that committee? If it's a one-year committee, like the EEO committee for HR, it's not a multiple-year committee. And then I go through it, and I try to match up people. I also then make another list of people who already have a big committee, and then people who need a big committee. And then I kind of, you know, make some additional marks and scratch people off. It's kind of a big mess. I lay this all out on my table at home, and I try to do this. And then I go back to faculty and I say, oh, hey, you know, so-and-so, you need a big committee. Here's a possible list. Do any of these resonate with you? Also keeping in mind the fact that people teach. And if you teach, you often can't meet if it's a Thursday from 1 to 3 when the committee meets and you teach Thursday 1 to 3, you can't be on that committee. So again, I would just ask for your patience as we try to get this rolling. My goal every year, I'd say, is about October. What the process will be is to take this list, what I think is going to be the best guess at where people maybe match up with their committee, then take it to Michelle Risden and I think Jeff DeFranco as well and say, what do you think? Does this list look good to you? Do you agree with all these appointments? If it's a thumbs up, and go back to you and say, here's your committee list. What do you think of it? Hopefully you're okay with it. If something strange happens, like your teaching schedule changes suddenly, we might come back to you and say, well, you know, do you have an idea about another committee? We might have to switch some people out with that. So that's kind of what's happening with committees this year. By the way, in the old days, you might recall, I had this spreadsheet. Where is it? just pulling up here in Excel. And the idea of the spreadsheet was to track workload in some way, to try to say, you know, we've always had tiers, and Dr. Riz and I sat down last year and said, let's give 3 points to a tier 1 committee, 2 points to a tier 2. And we try to quantify that by saying, if you met, you know, twice a month, that's more responsibility time-wise than once a month or once a quarter. We can kind of do that. And so what I did was I put everyone's name, and then I had all the committees, and then I just did a simple equation there to try to add stuff up, and then we had a total number. I discovered that this wasn't being used. My time, as your time, as everyone else's time, is valuable. So I looked at it and kind of made an executive decision this year, and I said, we're not going to use the spreadsheet anymore. If in the future we find the spreadsheet is useful, if more than me on campus is using the spreadsheet for workload determination or conversations about committee service or something for tenure process, then we can bring it back. But I'm trying to be very pragmatic about it and proactive because of my time. And I'm going to say we're not going to do the spreadsheet this year. So that's cool. We tried it. Wasn't really useful for us on campus. But I think what we can do is have our list, and the list will still track your committee service. At the end of it's the per committee list. At the end of it, you're going to get also in the PDF a list by faculty. So each faculty member who has a committee, you'll see you're on this committee and this committee, whatever those are. If you're not getting a really big committee, I think what's going to happen is we'll probably put a little pressure on you, subtle pressure, I don't know, and say, please, please, please take more of the load for the hiring committees. Or if there's an ad hoc committee that gets launched, we're going to, you know, you're the short list. We're going to go to you first because you're not on a big committee, and we're going to ask you just to step up. I think it's the fairest way. We're a small faculty. We are hit so hard. I'm glad we have Willie Brown reduced teaching program. I'm the reduced workload program. I'm glad we have our sabbaticals. Great to see those programs. It does affect the big picture of committees. We are still keeping the stipulation that if you're gone, let's say winter quarter, we won't replace you on that committee, which is a bit of strategy for us. I want to say that we may not want to put you on a committee if it's one of the big councils and you're going to be gone 1 or 2 more quarters, because we're going to lose faculty representation. You need to be able to go do your workload reduction. You need to be able to go do your sabbatical. But we need representation on those councils because we'll lose one faculty voice. So I'm really leaning towards in the future, we'll see how this goes, maybe you won't serve on one of the big councils. What it does is it puts more pressure on us. If I'm not on reduced teaching and you are, it's a trade-off, right? So it could be more work for me as a faculty member because I've got to find a person to take your place on one of those big councils, or I have to take your place on one of those big councils. So really bear with us. If you're gone for most of the year, I'm going to sort of use that as an opportunity to say, hey, when you are here, let's load you up with more committees. You can be on more hiring committees than normal. Maybe you'll do 3 1/4 because there has to be a way for us to help each other. We're a faculty here together. We have to collaborate. We have to think about our workload and really protect ourselves. So work with me on that. It might seem initially a little like, oh, I don't know if that really works for me, but I think in the big picture, it's the best for all of us as a collective. So work with me on that a little bit. So that is our committee, what's happening with it. Again, October 1st is my goal on that. Teaching talks, I want to report that we've had some successful teaching talks. I'm just pulling my board here. Our first one, the topic was overall, it's the first week of classes, and one thing I want to think about is blank. And we had about 9 faculty in person, full and part-time. We had 6 people participating online. I didn't get to see the names of them. And then this week, on September 24th, on Tuesday at noon, we had a really, these are just been awesome. We had over 10 people there. There were 2 part-time faculty, full-time faculty. Elizabeth, our new dual enrollment director, coordinator, was there. We had people online as well. I apologize. The Wi-Fi was being a little funky. I heard there's something going on. There was something going on at Denny's today, and so I think the live cast didn't really work. But I have these all archived on my YouTube. If you need the video link, let me know. But today we talked about, it was Stephanie Snyder from Communications, and I just said, I actually began with a chart, and the chart was pretty simple. I said, you teach in a particular area, and how could either a content issue from your area or a pedagogical technique be relevant to another faculty member's discipline, counseling, whatever. So Stephanie Snyder from Communications, who's taught for us for quite a while, she came up with the issue of public speaking techniques because she teaches that particular class. So it was really cool. So then we got into this conversation about, well, why is public speaking valuable to a student? And then we got into students who are introverts. And then Sarah Pierce told a really good story about a student with a disability and how in a DE class, I don't know if it was a he or she, but that person was able to more effectively communicate and deal with their disability because it was a DE class. So we really ran the range of different modalities of teaching, different disciplines. It was really cool to hear from some of our new people on campus. We saw Mary Cook there from English, again, Elizabeth from dual enrollment, and it was just a really nice cross-functionality of different disciplines. So keep these on the radar. Every Tuesday from 12 to 1, I've reserved E100 on campus. I have a web link as well. You can participate. Just hit me up for that. I'll send you that on YouTube. I apologize for some of the issues with Wi-Fi that have come up lately. If there is a big student event on campus that we want faculty participation in, I will not hold one, and maybe we'll do it on a Friday. So I just want you to know, but I have E100 booked out. You can also do it virtually. If the virtual audio, I think Eric Sturgis was saying there were some issues with the audio, and that could have been because of the Wi-Fi on September 24th. But what you can always do is come back to my YouTube page, and I'll send you the link of the teaching talk that's recorded on my good camera with a little better audio using my good audio recorder where I try to capture all the audio in E100 as we're all talking. So be on the lookout for this. I'm so excited that we're launching these because we're getting that conversation about teaching and pedagogical techniques that I think we really need to sustain ourselves as faculty member here at LTCC. As always, if you have questions that come up after this President's Report, let me know, send me an email, come by my office. I'd love to talk to you about some of these issues. And if there are any concerns you have as a faculty member, just let me know, because again, I'm representing you through our Academic Senate, which covers academic and professional matters. The Faculty Association or union or bargaining group covers any workload concerns that you might have related to salary, benefits, office, or physical working conditions. So anything comes up, let me know. Otherwise, I'll talk to you again probably in October for another installment of the LTCC Academic Senate President's Report. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you soon. Of the LTCC Academic President's of the LTCC Academic Senate President's Report. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you soon.